Cloak Dagger Season 1, new Marvel show on Freeform. Decent show. It was only a 10-episode season, and they seemed like they tried to cram a little bit too much into it, and they didn't really get the payoff that they wanted in a lot of this stuff. It didn't even feel so much like they were trying to save it all for next season. I don't know, just felt like they set up a lot, and it just kind of went nowhere. But it was actually an entertaining show. The best part definitely is their two lead characters, Tyrone and Tandy, or Cloak and Dagger, whatever you want to call them, because they don't call them, superhero shows. Just good acting by both of them, great chemistry together. The downside is that they're hardly ever together. I think they bump into each other the first episode, and then they just kind of go their separate ways. And it seems like anytime they get back together, they either only briefly work together and just go, different directions again, or they're pissed at each other and they're fighting, and then they go other directions again. So you really don't get a lot of these guys interacting, not as much as you would like to see. I know you're trying to kind of tell their separate stories and then bring them together, but I don't think it was executed as well as it could have been, and it almost felt slightly forced in the finale when they do come together. By the way, haven't done any yet, but this is going to be a spoiler-filled review, so I haven't had any spoilers too badly yet. On my website, soundedbetterinmyhead.com, there's a review on there with pretty much no spoilers either. A couple little tiny hints towards stuff, but it was overall no spoilers. If you want to read that first, go ahead. But anyways, I'm going to continue with this. As far as our lead characters, again, I think Tandy had the better storyline. Hers is just more proactive. She was out there trying to find proof that her father didn't cause this explosion on the oil rig, and just, as I said, she's just out there. She's just a master manipulator and like almost a chameleon. She could slip into parties, she could slip into here, make herself look like, part of the crowd wherever she's at. Not like a superhero power, but just by she's almost like a spy in a way, the way she poses stuff up. Cloak, on the other hand, is not as just like he said. He's trying to prove that this cop killed his brother, and he didn't have as much of a clear route to try to find this out. And it was just kind of, I don't know, his plans were usually half-assed, and why Tandy seemed to work, his seemed to kind of blow up in his face, and then he would just go back to playing basketball again. On top of that, Tandy mastered her powers pretty early on, and it took him forever to learn his, and even then they weren't all that, there were moments where they were pretty cool, but the other parts, and like during fights and stuff, they were lame. Just in general, their powers weren't super cool. Watching like fight sequences, like she would throw her knife, and he's just kind of disappearing and then reappearing and pushing somebody. Like, he really didn't do anything that cool for the most part with his abilities. The rest of the characters were pretty strong, especially, I believe, Tyrone's parents. Well written, very real, down to earth. Some of the dialogue between him and his parents was very well done, touching on a lot of topics that are pretty current. A lot of the same stuff you see in Black Lightning, but it's just coming from a different family's perspective, and it's a pretty common thread going through these shows. And the good thing is that they're all talking about this problem. The bad thing is that this problem does exist. But Tandy's story, sure, stuff with her mom wasn't as interesting. Bits and pieces of were. There was a couple, nice emotional beats. Some of the shit didn't make sense. Like, there was a big moment early on where the boyfriend of her mother that's helping prove that Roxanne Oil is behind everything gets assassinated right in front of Tandy. And this is you just seeing a guy get assassinated looking into this information didn't really seem like it was that big deal. I don't think she ever really mentioned it again. I didn't even warn Cloak or her mom or anyone, like, hey, don't look into this, the assassin's gonna try to kill you. It was just a weird beat, and it sucked because it really started to ramp up the intensity. Like, okay, Roxanne's not playing, these kids gotta watch out because they will try to kill you, and they just dropped it, and it really didn't resurface again until late. Make the last couple episodes maybe, if that. Another odd character that was kind of thrown in there was Detective O'Reilly. Terrible introduction, in my opinion. She shows up, and I don't think she says a single word her entire first episode. She's just kind of doing police stuff without talking, and you just don't know what her deal is. And then she kind of talks, and she's such a vague character. Like, you just don't know what her motivations are. And then she's randomly hooking up some other cop in a police car. I'm like, was this her boyfriend? Is this some random hookup? They don't really never even blatantly tell you. I mean, you don't really get into this couple's inner workings until he's making her pancakes, trying to say, "Hey, you're my girlfriend now," and then he gets killed and thrown in the refrigerator. And again, the only time she even starts to become interesting to the viewer is that she starts trying to help Tyrone. There's a lot of stuff that kind of comes with characters, and you think they're going to dig into something really deep with them, and then they just kind of fade out. The big one was Father Delgado, who looked like he was supposed to be a big deal. He was part of the main cast, so he's like a main character, and he kind of vanished after a couple episodes. Showed up late. He had a nice storyline about his alcoholism and possibly hit and run on a child, which explains why he went on and became a priest and all that stuff. But as I said, he was just gone for so long, it's like you kind of just forgot about him. It seemed like if you would have kept him in there, it would have been hit a little bit harder, his backstory. I actually gave the show a little extra credit. They not only make a couple references to some of the Netflix characters, but then they also mention briefly, like Tony Stark, which sounds stupid, but the TV shows have been really bad about acknowledging the other TV shows, especially S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. would mention damn near anything that happens in a movie, but they've never once said anything about bulletproof guy in Harlem or super strong private eye living in New York or any of the other shows. So it's kind of nice to at least start connecting these smaller shows together and kind of build that Marvel universe on that smaller screen, which is what I think we wanted to see from the beginning, and we really haven't got. But like I said, I was kind of getting to it before. The overall plot is decent. I like the setup. It was a great start. Seeing all these characters got their powers and the tragedies that happened in their life, and then we see where they're at today, 8 years after their accident, and they're all in a bad place. So you start your hero's journey, and I said just kind of starts and stops, and then this whole weird voodoo side plot, which like I said, it seems kind of important at first, and then it disappears, then it comes back at the end, and it seems like it doesn't really matter because they basically trying to tell you that one of the two main characters has to die, and then they don't, which they're not going to kill off Cloak or Dagger on a show called Cloak and Dagger, especially when it's announced that there's a season 2, which also not only is so much a fault of the show, but they also spoiled at Comic-Con that Detective O'Reilly will apparently become Mayhem in season 2. And so by the time you get to the post-credit scene in the season finale, it's like, okay, we knew something was going to happen anyways. But I said this overall plot lacks urgency. Like I said, they had the assassination. You're like, okay, this is deep. Something's, these guys are really evil and they got to be stopped. And then you got the corrupt cop, and he's not a good dude, so he's got to be stopped. And I thought they were going to tie these two stories together. Another cop mentioned his uncle was the one that kept him from getting in trouble for murdering Tyrone's brother. So I thought maybe he'd be someone in Roxanne, maybe in Scarborough, whatever his name was. But if he was a relative, it wasn't mentioned. You figure these two would have their two separate stories, and then they kind of come together, and it's life or death. And we don't really get that. It's only late in the season when we introduce the concept of this energy that might be released and it's going to cause chaos. And then they finally got to step it up, and they kind of wrap it up a little quickly. The ending was a little corny with her doing the light dagger. He was doing the little darkness into the air. I don't know. As far as my favorite episode, I think I would have to go with the first episode, First Light. Just I thought that was a great establishment of these characters, seeing where they're at, seeing where they're going to go. They interact. You get the first hint of their powers. It was a really strong setup, and you're like, okay, I want to see what happens next. I thought the second episode took probably the biggest dip. Suicide Sprint was the name of the episode. You said these characters come together, and then they just completely do their own separate thing again, and just felt like it took a U-turn pretty quickly and didn't advance the story the way I would like the scene. And then same thing when you're introducing Detective O'Reilly, and she doesn't even say a damn word the whole episode, and it's like, what is her deal, and why is she getting this much screen time? They said it wasn't a terrible episode. I don't think there was any terrible episodes this season. But that was decent. As far as my notes, anything else that might be worth talking about? It was a little silly about Tandy stealing Tyrone's hoodie in the flashback and him taking her ballet shoe. Just, I could see her at least leaving with a jacket. She's cold, she's wet, that's cool. But this kid just taking some random ballet shoe, unless it's just for him to remind himself that this really happened. Mildly corny too. They're kind of more mental powers, if you want to call them that. Their psychic powers were a little goofy, especially the episode 3. She gets hit in the head and gets this magical vision quest, and he takes some hallucinogenic, whatever they were, drugs, if you want to call them that, herbs, and then they're seeing each other. I don't know. That wasn't bad, but they would just kind of do it. They go these different, the oil rig realm where she trapped had Roxanne in the end. Somehow she was able to trap him in this weird loop that should have only existed for Ivan Rice. I don't know. That whole thing is was hit or miss. They would do a lot of weird stuff, but where they jump around in time. So they'd start the episode one way, and then they would cut to something else, and you would jump backwards or forward, or someone would be narrating, and occasionally it would work, but a lot of times it just kind of took you out of the episode, especially if something major would happen at the end of the last episode, and then you come back and there's some weird shit that just jumps to, and it's, I don't know, it was kind of mediocre to me. Episode 7 was a decent episode where they were trapped basically in that, it's kind of like I don't know what you call it, like a mental prison with stuck in the oil rig, and I kind of like the concept. I'm glad they didn't do the traditional, oh, we die here, we die in real life. Like they die, apparently they just go back to the beginning of the loop again. It was a good way for Cloak to get but Dagger to get even better with her powers, but kind of Cloak really needed to help more than she did. That episode also had some really good touching moments. Tandy being able to hear her dad's voice again and talk to him, even though it wasn't really real. I thought that was well done. The finale, like I said, it felt kind of rushed, and that it was so vague about. And I think I said vague about our time. As far as the finale goes, they were never really so clear. Like you had these people that were trying to kill them. They were maniacs that run around, and once they did their thing at the end, it stopped and everyone went back to normal. But there was Tandy stabbing people. O'Reilly's got a sniper rifle. She's shooting people. It's like, did these people get killed? Did they just murder a bunch of people to protect themselves? I mean, granted, they were trying not to die, but they weren't very clear on on the impact of that. And I don't know. So really don't got a ton. Like I said, it was only 10 episodes. I think I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5. I could have maybe gave it 3. There was a lot to like, but like I said, it just felt like it just was something was missing. It just wasn't really connecting like it should have. And when you only do 10 episodes, you think you got to come a little bit, with more authority to your episode. You can't just kind of flounder around as much. And I really don't got too much else. Thanks for watching. Again, check out this and some other reviews. SoundedBetterInMyHead.com. Probably won't have any TV reviews coming up for a while. I don't think any shows that I really watch are coming back for at least a couple months, not till the fall. So, thanks again.